Welcome to the Revenue Marketing Report powered by Caliber Mind. This is the podcast for marketers trying to expand their leadership skills. I'm your host, Camela Thompson. Today I'm joined again by Jordan Koene, and we are talking about why content marketing is more important than ever. Jordan, your initial thoughts?
Yeah, my initial thoughts. There's a lot of things running through my mind right now. And it's interesting, from our previous episode, we talked a lot about kind of the prolification of spam, or just a lot of just useless marketing efforts that exist. And certainly content has been a victim of that too, right? Whether it's with the introduction of AI, um, or even prior to that, just
Oh,
the
yeah.
pure manufacturing of content.
Yeah, there's a lot of I'll say it, bad content in the B2B space. There's some good stuff, but there was some
Right.
bad stuff.
Absolutely. And the reality, though, is that we are going into a transformative year in 2024, in the sense that we're moving more and more into this cookieless world. Google and other major advertising platforms are making it very clear that that's not going to be the way in which we target users. And in knowing that, there's going to be a couple of derivative impacts that happen to all of us as marketers, right? If we know a little bit less about where people are traversing the internet, we have to be much more mindful about how we target them with the content we have. And so I personally believe that the future of content on the internet is going to be a experience-based focus, where
Mm.
it's not just about writing text. It's not just about putting up words on a page or shoving it with 70 FAQs or adding a whole description about the history of the Roman Empire, even though nobody really cares about the Roman Empire on that page. It's
And the glossary, I
the
love that one
glossary
for
pages.
SEO.
Yes, I'd love a glossary of all of your internal lingo of your software, because that's really helping me as a buyer who doesn't even know what your software is. um, all that stuff is gone. It's of the past, right? But what we're really looking for is experience-based content, content that truly resonates with our needs and how we're trying to make a decision, right? And this isn't novel. This isn't new. This is everything from how, the innovation of content platforms like NerdWallet have evolved with calculators or different tools to manage money, right? Those are experiences. They're not just content tools, right? They're just not text on the page. They are actual content tools that enable our knowledge of how to pick the best credit card, the best loan, the best whatever it is for our current lifestyle or situation that we're in. And I think those are the types of efforts now evolving into the future that we're going to have to be mindful of.
I think you're so right. And I'm thinking, I work really closely with the RevOps Co-op. It's a community, and I think those are going to really take off too in terms of vendor partnerships. And what we do in that community is we coach our partners on what kind of content, webinar formats, et cetera, that work with our particular community. Now, we're dealing with a very specific persona, but they don't like to sit and listen to talking heads spout opinions. They want a checklist, a how-to guide, something they can walk away with and put in place. And not every audience is going to be like that, but it's a really good example of the kind of content that people want to apply to their jobs, to make their lives easier, that sort of thing.
100%. And to add to that, you know, people on the internet today, they are more so than ever before looking for a conversation,
Yeah.
right? And I think we've been missing that as marketers, especially B2B marketers. Um, we really are failing our core audience by not allowing them to find a way to engage with us, right? And I'm not talking about the pop-up chat widget that's connected to your salesperson who's gonna, spew off some pricing to somebody. That's not a conversation, right? I'm talking about forums, engagement, different ways to solicit information about a user without them feeling like they're giving you too much information. I mean, the power of gaining an email these days is becoming much more harder because consumers don't know why they would want to give it to you. And we know that thousands of users today, that what do? They essentially spend all their time giving you fake emails, right? So they give you an email that is just a throwaway email. It's the old Hotmail email or whatever it is. So are we really engaging with someone who genuinely wants to give us not only their information, but wants to give us the right information so that we can have a genuine dialogue with them, right? And that I think is missing today in the way we market our content.
Absolutely. I mean, respect for those who give you actual information. Respect the trust that they put in you to not abuse that information.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because they're looking for content that's they can use and interact with, right? As you're saying, I'm thinking back to the RevOps Co-op, their newsletter, best practices, job posts, those sorts of things instead of feature spewing. Don't do it.
Right.
Don't do it.
Right. I mean, I have an anecdotal email example, right? Which is I have a Yahoo email, which is my throwaway email, and I have a Gmail email that's my real personal email, right? Whenever I need to give up my personal email, if I at all feel uncomfortable about it, or at all feel like there's some lack of judgment in me giving this away, I'm going Yahoo. I'm not going Gmail. And my Yahoo account has 10 times the amount of spam that my Gmail account has. And they both have the same filtering capabilities. And it doesn't end up on my main screen, but every, month or two, I go into my spam and I delete everything that's in there. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy how many spam emails I have in my Yahoo account versus my Gmail. And it's because, those wherever I signed up sold my data to some other company. And, I didn't notice because the terms on that click box was just like, font size 0.03. And these are the tactics as marketers that we just kind of created an entire community that lacks trust. So how do you build trust through your content? Enough to know that you're going to get the right information from your user. That's a big question to ask your marketing teams and your product teams and to ensure that you're getting the right message out.
So you shared a really interesting study on how many pages do not get any traffic from Google. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so Camila, this was a great study by Ahrefs, which is it's a tool used by content marketers and SEOs alike. And it's a really valuable study to show just the proliferation of just garbage content that Google has to sift through. And the outcome of this study is looking at their data, 96.5%, or essentially in their database, 13, almost 14 billion pages receive zero visits from Google. Right. So these don't even get any traffic, any awareness from Google whatsoever.
Yeah, I think I think two things. One, you need to get as close to your customer as possible and figure out where they hang out, what they prefer to read. I mean, and as much as we bashed ChatGPT in the last session, it can actually be kind of helpful when it comes to persona research. So start there, verify it with actual human beings, and figure out where people are going. I think the other piece of this is we don't spend enough time thinking about the type of concept or content that we want to consume when we're greenlighting a content strategy at our own organization. I mean, just if you're a TikTok user, think about how few accounts you actually bother to follow. What's the difference?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a challenge for us as marketing leaders or teams that are in this mindset of production, right? I think the
Yeah,
mindset of production is what gets us queued up. And social media, to your point, has kind of prolificated that, right? Because in order to be relevant in social media, it's not about quality
it's
at
the
all.
algorithm.
Yeah, it's about timing and messaging, right? Like it has nothing to do with quality. You're just messaging or triggering some sort of action and you're doing it in a very timely manner. And so volume becomes your friend in that situation, right? You have to try 9 out of 10 times to create a lot of virality in what you produce, but very rarely in a social media circumstance is it that you miraculously wrote the best tweet. No, it's not about the best tweet. It's just that you just happen to be there at the right time at the right place. That's one circumstance. Or you're able to use certain language that triggers others to elicit their response, right? And so it's not the best post, it's not the best tweet. It just it's confined to those types of scenarios, which breed this production mentality, which really doesn't help us in this content world.
Right. And I think social media and the algorithms that prefer you post daily, that's not helping. I think Google has made some positive changes, though, that we either aren't aware of or are ignoring. So, for example, you're probably better off waiting to publish a really great piece. Keyword stuffing doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't.
No. That's right. And I mean, not only is it the tactics of past like keyword stuffing not going to help us, it's also just a reality that we're all facing a crisis in terms of understanding what our content is messaging and why are we messaging that to the user. And part of it is that we're as many, especially in B2B circumstances, being a former CEO of a B2B company, I know this very well. We often get very fixated on our own language, on our
Yeah.
own priorities, on our own objective. And oftentimes that completely misses the mark in terms of what consumers are thinking about or looking for. And thus you miss the value message that we all talk about, right? It's so easy to talk about, oh, you just need to create a value message to your consumer. Well, that's easier said than done. You actually have to, peel back the layers of the onion to truly understand what that value message has to be.
Yeah, and as much as I talk about not keyword stuffing, which I believe don't do that, keyword research or using related searches or answer the public, those sorts of things can be really useful in figuring out what people actually want to learn about.
100%. I mean, the tools are an amazing resource for us. The data that we have at our fingertips as marketers has never been greater, in my opinion, and that's super valuable in order to make wise decisions on where to invest. But the questions of how are still often highly misunderstood, and the who is often misunderstood by us as marketers.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of remedies for that, but that's several podcast episodes. So I'm excited for our next topic. I know I've talked about it before on this show, but Jordan, I'm interested to hear your perspective on what B2B websites get wrong. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to the Revenue Marketing Report. Please tell 2 friends, subscribe, download, whatever you can helps. And for those of you looking for more great content like this, check out caliberbuying.com.